President-elect says he doesn't really care as long as they fork over their front row seats.
As far as other people not going, that's okay, because we need seats so badly. I hope they give me their tickets. Are they going to give us their tickets, or are they going to give them to other people? No, what happens to their tickets? I hope they're going to give us their tickets.
The president-elect is also protesting this morning because he doesn't think he's getting enough credit for work that he did during the transition. So on Twitter, he wrote this: totally biased NBC News went out of its way to say that the big announcement from Ford, GM, Lockheed, and others that jobs are coming back to the U.S., but had nothing to do with Trump, is more fake news. Ask top CEOs of those companies for real facts. Came back because of me. And he does say that the tweets are going to continue past Friday because he thinks it's the only way to reach people without having the press twist his words around, or at least his meaning around. Sandra.
All right, Peter, and we've got the countdown clock going here as we await President Obama's final news conference at the White House. But while we wait to hear what Trump has to say tomorrow, what are Trump's advisors looking for at President Obama's final press conference?
Sandra, they want some clarity about the commutation of Private Chelsea Manning's sentence.
Why are you cherry picking what leaks are important, which leaks are not important, depending on the leaker and depending on the content that was leaked? I mean, how can we look the other way? You know, Chelsea Manning's the documents that Chelsea Manning had acquired were found on Osama bin Laden's computer, as you'll remember. That tells you how sloppy this was.
And before even taking the oath of office for term number 1, Mr. Trump is looking ahead to 2020, teasing a new slogan for a re-election campaign to the Washington Post. That slogan would be, "Keep America Great." Sandra.
All right, Peter Doocy. And by the way, it looks like we'll be hearing from Sean Spicer, the incoming press secretary, tomorrow, speaking on behalf of Donald Trump. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. All right, well, a day packed with confirmation hearings on Capitol Hill. 4 separate cabinet nominees being put to the test, grilled by lawmakers who want to know if they're up to their respective jobs. Here's some of what we have been hearing today.
I may be the only nominee ever for a Commerce Secretary who actually worked as a census taker.
I am painfully aware that the chance for 13-year-old girls to read and learn and grow is something that does not exist in far too many places around the world today.
A couple of vivid memories stand out. One, many of my patients were never more irritated or angry when they recognized that there was somebody else in the exam room, not physically but figuratively, who was getting between the doctor and the patient in making decisions.
Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel joins us live from Capitol Hill. Mike, what were some of the feistier moments for Congressman Price, who would oversee the transition from Obamacare to a new system?
Well, Sandra, that's absolutely correct. Dr. Tom Price is expected to be a critical player in that transition to a new health care system. Dr. Price talked about it being important that Medicaid users do not fall through the cracks during that change to a new health care system. Price says he supports making sure that every single American has the type of health care coverage that they want. And at one point, Price clashed with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
We're a compassionate society.
No, we are not a compassionate society. In terms of our relationship to poor and working people, our record is worse than virtually any other country on earth. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any other major country on earth, and half of our senior older workers have nothing set aside for retirement. So I don't think compared to other countries we are particularly compassionate.
If you want to talk about other countries' health care systems, there are consequences to the decisions that they've made, just as there are consequences to the decision that we've made.
Democrats on that panel complained they wanted more time to ask questions to Dr. Price. Chairman Lamar Alexander noted by staying there for about 4 hours, that was longer than other recent nominees, but he will be appearing before another panel, Senate Finance, next week, which will obviously have the chance to confirm him or to send his nomination to the Senate floor. Sandra.
All right, Mike, and what were some of the tougher issues in the hearing for the nominee to lead the EPA?
Well, Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt is the person that President-elect Trump has nominated to lead the EPA, and he has taken some heat for his ties, being from Oklahoma, to major energy companies. Pruitt was not having it, firing back at that type of attack.
It's a complete black hole into which at least $1 million goes, and based on your record of fundraising, it appears that a great deal of your fundraising comes from these organizations who are in the energy sector and devoted to fighting climate change.
Some of whom I've actually sued as well, Senator. But with respect to the rule
Name one you've sued up there.
ExxonMobil.
Really?
Scott Pruitt was also grilled on the issue of climate change. They were trying to see if they could drive a wedge between him and President-elect Trump. And Pruitt said he does not believe that climate change is a hoax. Sandra?
All right, Mike Emanuel, we look forward to your coverage of Inauguration Day on Friday as well. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Fox News alert, former President George H.W. Bush recovering in a Houston hospital right now after suffering an acute respiratory problem stemming from pneumonia. Previous reports claimed shortness of breath. We're learning a spokesman for Bush has said that the 92-year-old was admitted over the weekend, and he is listed in stable condition in the ICU, where he will remain for observation. Casey Siegel joins me live in Houston with more on Bush's health. What are you hearing?
Well, Sandra, we've been told all morning that doctors were, quote, very pleased with the progress that the former president was making and that he would likely be released from the hospital back here in Houston soon. But then we did get an update a short time ago, a new statement out from the president's office saying that Mr. Bush has been moved to intensive care to treat the respiratory issue. The statement goes on to say, and I'm quoting here, doctors performed a procedure to protect and clear his airway that required sedation. President Bush is stable and resting comfortably in the ICU, where he will remain for observation. Now, we also just learned that former First Lady Barbara Bush also admitted to the exact same hospital earlier this morning. Staffers say this was done as a precaution after she started experiencing fatigue and coughing. You may recall the former president spent Christmas at Methodist Hospital here back in 2014 when he was treated for shortness of breath. The following year, the 92-year-old was hospitalized in Maine after breaking a vertebra in his neck from falling at their Kennebunkport home. These latest health issues will prevent Mr. and Mrs. Bush from attending Friday's inauguration in D.C. With a bit of levity sprinkled in, Bush 41 sent this letter to President-elect Trump. It reads in part, "My doctor says if I sit outside in January, it likely will put me 6 feet under." Same for Barbara. So I guess we're stuck in Texas, but we will be with you and the country in spirit. So again, right now, President Bush and former First Lady Barbara Bush resting comfortably at the hospital back here behind me in Houston. No word on when they could be discharged. Sandra?
Casey, thank you for the report. We wish both of them the very best.
Yeah.
All right, well, the president is just moments away now from reaching that podium where Mr. Obama is set to give the final news conference of his presidency. There in the White House briefing room, scheduled to start in just a few short moments. He is expected to field questions about his 11th hour pardons, including Chelsea Manning, and another round of cabinet hearings on Capitol Hill today. Nominees pressed on everything from NATO to NAFTA, a day after Secretary of Education nominee Betsy DeVos took a political bruising over public education.
People do not believe that the federal government should be telling us what is taught in the classroom.
At Little River Casino Resort, the fun is even bigger than before. Come celebrate a sweet moment with us at our new Nectar Spa and Salon. Relax poolside at our new indoor and outdoor swimming pools and hot tubs. Spend a night in a comfy room before the fun starts all over again. It's all for you, only at Little River Casino Resort. Little River, big fun.
Appliance shopping can be confusing. At Seaway Appliance, we make it easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, we have a great selection of home appliances to choose from, and we offer competitive pricing.
2, the staff is friendly and knowledgeable, and our customers can enjoy a no-pressure experience.
3, we have our own professional service department.
Plus, because we're a brand source store, you know you're getting the best deal possible. saving you money.
Where are you going to shop for your next appliance or TV? Seaway Appliance. Thank you for your business.
Seaway Appliance.
What is this miraculous invention that separates our side of the room from theirs? Listen. Now you hear them.
Now you don't. Every family deserves a two-room suite.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
What is this miraculous invention that separates our side of the room from theirs? Listen. Now you hear them.
Now you don't. Every family deserves a two-room suite.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
The honey in Honey Nut Cheerios likes to take its sweet time. That's why we make them for you.
Fox News Channel on Sirius XM. Your favorite shows on Channel 114. Plus every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7. Channel 115.
4 cabinet nominees feeling the heat today on Capitol Hill, including South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, up for U.S. Ambassador to the UN, and Georgia Congressman Tom Price, up for Health Secretary. Dr. Price explaining his primary goal earlier.
I think it's absolutely imperative that we have a system in place that has patients at the center and allows for every single American to have the opportunity to gain access to the kind of coverage they want.
You share his goal of insurance for everybody.
That's been always my stated goal. It's what we've worked on and throughout my entire public career.
Chris Plante is a syndicated radio talk show host. Leslie Marshall is a Fox News contributor and syndicated radio talk show host. There were some fireworks in there today. Chris?
Well, they need to take someone down, right? The Democrats have promised their base that they're going to take somebody out. And Dr. Price, a medical doctor, a member of Congress, I suppose is as good a target for them as anyone. They want to take out somebody because it looks like they're all coasting through and they don't have a lot of power since they don't control the Senate. They don't have the votes. Harry Reid took the filibuster away from them. So they're kind of screwed, and they've got to take someone down because this is their stated goal.
They certainly are, Leslie, taking their best shots. But will they get anywhere with this, or will all the nominees pass through?
We know numerically the nominees are going to pass through. And, Chris, I think you're old enough to remember when Democrats have been presidents and put forth nominees. This is politics as usual. Whatever party is in power says, thank you for coming. We love you. We respect you. Kisses, kisses. And whatever party is not, they grill them. And, by the way, I think that's a responsibility of all left and right for the American people to properly vet an individual who has been nominated for a top position that's going to be
we're not exactly saying politics as usual, Chris, when we see that over 60 Democrats are sitting out the inauguration. There's a little something more going on here.
Well, there's the partisan rancor has never been more heated. They're trying everything they can to delegitimize the incoming administration. They want to destroy the careers and the reputations of one or more of the people nominated to take senior posts, cabinet posts, and otherwise. And it's a blood sport. It's not about whether they legitimately have anything that would disqualify them from taking the jobs. It's just about the kill. It's about the sport of the kill.
Well,
it's a vicious
and you
town.
look back at Betsy DeVos and her hearing. I'd be curious, Leslie, your take on how you think that went.
First of all, I don't think that, I think she avoided the question that a lot of people, especially Democrats, want to hear the answer to, and that is whether or not she plans to defund and dismantle the public education system throughout all 50 of the United States. That is a major concern because there are people out there, parents out there, like myself of an 8- and 9-year-old, some who are very happy with the public school system.
Right.
Although there are areas that have problems, like Detroit. Detroit is not.
Well, she was certainly grilled in that room, that's for sure.
Everywhere.
I want to keep moving along because, as you know,
be.
we've got a countdown clock going. We are awaiting the president's final news conference in the White House briefing room. You've got a little picture of it down there below Leslie. We'll watch that. Meanwhile, I want to ask you about President Obama now holding the record for granting more commutations than any other president in our nation's history. Today alone, he granted 209 commutations. 109 of those people were facing life sentences. And with today's 64 pardons, the president has now granted a total of 212 pardons. Chris?
Listen, this is a great week for terrorists, for criminals, for traitors. President Obama, little noticed item. They signed a deal, the administration did on Monday, in Cuba with the Cuban government, where Joanne Chesimard, who's a convicted cop killer, a terrorist, a radical, that was given safe haven in Cuba. The Obama administration cut a deal with the regime there that they don't have to return the criminals that are being given safe haven. He's trying to release as many people as possible from Guantanamo Bay, terrorists, many of whom will return to murder. He's commuted the sentence of Private Manning, who betrayed his country. And there's also a little noticed FALN member who's responsible for about 130 terrorist bombings in the United States. And he's a radical left-winger, and he's commuted his sentence. You start putting all these together, and I think you get a picture of who Barack Obama is.
All right, Leslie, last word to you. All of this happening in literally the final days of his presidency.
I'm not surprised. I mean, quite frankly, not because it's President Obama doing this. It's very common for presidents to commute, and sometimes not at the end. George W. Bush commuted sentences and almost 200 pardons. I think it was 172 total.
The number
that
President Obama has done far exceeds any presidents who have come before him in recent.
And terrorists and traitors and cop killers.
Okay. All right, we've got to leave it there, guys. As I mentioned, we are waiting the president's final news conference. Thank you for being here. Good to see both of you.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, live look, there's the White House briefing room. There it is, the podium that the president will be stepping up to shortly. We are just moments away from the start of President Obama's final news conference. And foreign policy is expected to be a big topic, including the state of play in war-torn Syria and our fight against ISIS. Fox News political editor Chris Stirewalt will be here to weigh in.
I'm teaching tennis now, but I'm going through a lot of balls. Can I deduct them?
In your case, yes.
Oh, cool.
On January 27th.
What do you want from me?
Get to the high, then you'll have your answer.
The truth can't stay buried forever.
Your whole life has been a lie.
I know who I am.
It's over. Resident Evil, the final chapter. Rated R. On January 27th.
What do you want from me?
Get to the high, then you'll have your answer.
The truth can't stay buried forever.
Your whole life has been a lie.
I know who I am.
It's over. Resident Evil, the final chapter. Rated R.
Okay, I'll just let her rip.
Turning conventional conversation,
I think all of you are wrong,
on its head.
Do you want more of this?
And taking debate to the next level.
We don't even know, do we?
It's what everyone's talking about.
This is absolutely outrageous.
Don't miss the fun.
And good afternoon from Fox News World Headquarters in New York. I'm
Nice work, Brother Dominic. Now we just need 500 more. Translated into 35 languages, personalized. Oh, and shared across the 7 continents.
Mira, qué bonito. Dominic, ma. Dominic. Ini brother Dominic first.
Brother Dominic.
Look, Abbott. I got it.
It's a miracle.
Smart business news with a little attitude.
Bitcoin is not going to save them.
She's taking business talk to a new level. Dynamic TV that hits the mark. Maria's got a whole new way to kick off your morning, only on Fox Business Network.
Let me start off by saying that I was sorely tempted to wear a tan suit today for my last press conference, but Michelle, whose fashion sense is a little better than mine, tells me that's not appropriate in January. I covered a lot of the ground that I would want to cover in my farewell address last week, so I'm just going to say a couple of quick things before I start taking questions. First, we have been in touch with the Bush family today after hearing about President George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush being admitted to the hospital this morning. They have not only dedicated their lives to this country, they have been a constant source of friendship and support and good counsel for Michelle and me over the years. They are as fine a couple as we know. And so we want to send our prayers and our love to them. Really good people. Second thing I want to do is to thank all of you. Some of you have been covering me for a long time. There's folks like Christy and Lynn. Some of you, I've just gotten to know. We have traveled the world together. We've hit a few singles, a few doubles together. I've offered advice that I thought was pretty sound, like don't do stupid stuff. And even when you complained about my long answers, I just want you to know that the only reason they were long was because you asked 6-part questions. But I have enjoyed working with all of you. That does not, of course, mean that I've enjoyed every story that you have filed, but that's the point of this relationship. You're not supposed to be sycophants. You're supposed to be skeptics. You're supposed to ask me tough questions. You're not supposed to be complimentary, but you're supposed to cast a critical eye on folks who hold enormous power and make sure that we are accountable to the people who sent us here. And you have done that. And you have done it, for the most part, in ways that I could appreciate for fairness, even if I didn't always agree with your conclusions. And having you in this building has made this place work better. It keeps us honest. It makes us work harder. You have made us think about how we are doing what we do and whether or not we're able to deliver on what's been requested by our constituents. And for example, every time you've asked, why haven't you cured Ebola yet, or why is there still that hole in the Gulf, it has given me the ability to go back to my team and say, will you get this solved before the next press conference? I've spent a lot of time on in my farewell address talking about the state of our democracy. It goes without saying that essential to that is a free press. That is part of how this place, this country, this grand experiment in self-government has to work. It doesn't work if we don't have a well-informed citizenry. And you are the conduit through which they receive the information about what's taking place in the halls of power. So America needs you and our democracy needs you. We need you to establish a baseline of facts and evidence that we can use as a starting point for the kind of reasoned and informed debates that ultimately lead to progress. And so my hope is that you will continue with the same tenacity that you showed us to do the hard work of getting to the bottom of stories and getting them right, and to push those of us in power to be the best version of ourselves, and to push this country to be the best version of itself. I have no doubt that you will do so. I'm looking forward to being an active consumer of your work rather than always the subject of it. I want to thank you all for your extraordinary service to our democracy, and with that, I will take some questions. And I will start with Jeff Mason, whose term apparently is not up. I thought, you know, we'd be going out together, brother, but you got to hang around for a while.
I'm staying put.
Jeff Mason, Reuters.
Thank you, sir. Are you concerned, Mr. President, that commuting Chelsea Manning's sentence will send a message that leaking classified material will not generate a tough sentence to groups like WikiLeaks? How do you reconcile that in light of WikiLeaks' connection to Russia's hacking in last year's election? And related to that, Julian Assange has now offered to come to the United States. Are you seeking that? And would he be charged or arrested if he came here?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. Chelsea Manning has served a tough prison sentence. So the notion that the average person who was thinking about disclosing vital classified information would think that it goes unpunished, I don't think would get that impression from the sentence that Chelsea Manning has served. It has been my view that given she went to trial, that due process was carried out, that she took responsibility for her crime, that the sentence that she received was very disproportionate relative to what other leakers had received, and that she had served a significant amount of time, that it made sense to commute and not pardon her sentence. And you know, I feel very comfortable that justice has been served and that a message has still been sent that when it comes to our national security, that wherever possible, we need folks who may have legitimate concerns about the actions of government or their superiors or the agencies in which they work, that they try to work through the established channels and avail themselves of the whistleblower protections that have been put in place. I recognize that there's some folks who think they're not enough, and you know, I think all of us, when we're working in big institutions, may find ourselves at times at odds with policies that are set. But when it comes to national security, we're often dealing with people in the field whose lives may be put at risk, or you know, the safety and security and the ability of our military or our intelligence teams or our embassies to function effectively. And that has to be kept in mind. So with respect to WikiLeaks, I don't see a contradiction. First of all, I haven't commented on WikiLeaks generally. The conclusions of the intelligence community with respect to the Russian hacking were not conclusive as to whether WikiLeaks was witting or not in being the conduit through which we heard about the DNC emails that were leaked. I don't pay a lot of attention to Mr. Assange's tweets, so that wasn't a consideration in this instance, and I refer you to the Justice Department for any criminal investigations, indictments, extradition issues that may come up with him. You know, what I can say broadly is that in this new cyber age, we're going to have to make sure that we continually work to find the right balance of accountability and openness and transparency that is the hallmark of our democracy, but also recognize that there are adversaries and bad actors out there who want to use that same openness in ways that hurt us, whether that's in trying to commit financial crimes or trying to commit acts of terrorism, or folks who want to interfere with our elections. And we're going to have to continually build the kind of architecture to make sure the best of our democracy is preserved, that our national security and intelligence agencies have the ability to carry out policy without advertising to our adversaries what it is that we're doing, but do so in a way that still keeps citizens up to speed on what their government's doing on their behalf. But with respect